Hi, I'm Mr. Creason, and I'm so glad to have you on this APUSH journey this year. My video is on topic 1.3, European exploration, and a tiny little bit of topic 1.4 as well. We're focusing on what enabled exploration and why it took off, what motivated more and more of it as we go through the 1500s and 1600s. So first thing you have to acknowledge is new maritime technology and it getting into the hands of the Europeans. The Silk Road trading networks, the Crusades, this allowed for cultural diffusion of Far Eastern inventions, languages, religions, all sorts of things to move westward towards Europe. So that's the reason why Chinese compass, the Chinese sternpost rudder, Middle Eastern Latin sails, these things were able to make their way into the hands of European explorers. So let's go over a couple of them really fast. The compass, a Chinese invention, of course, allows you to navigate in the middle of a vast ocean with no landmarks in sight. The Latin sail allows you to move forward with your ship even if a wind is not in your rear. So rectangular sails, square sails, they're great for going fast if you have a tailwind. If you don't have any tailwind, if the wind's to the side of you, coming at an angle, the Latin sail is able to catch that crosswind and move your ship forward. So that's huge for being able to explore up and down coastlines and to go upriver or against currents. New ships made a difference as well. The Portuguese created the caravel, which was fast and small and could move up and down the coastlines. It had Latin sails. The carrack, an even bigger ship, more of a cargo ship, built for those long-haul voyages across the Atlantic to bring home new resources, and a lot of them. And gunpowder made it possible to dominate the regions that these explorers were entering into. The emergence of nation-states in Europe contributed as context for European exploration as well. By the mid-1400s, some monarchs began consolidating territories with shared languages, cultures, and identities into centralized nation-states. These stronger, unified nation-states could tax, maintain standing armies, and fund expensive overseas voyages to compete with rival powers. For example, Ferdinand of the Kingdom of Aragon and Isabella of Castile married and laid a foundation for what would grow into Spain. Together, they continued their reconquista, the reconquering, a centuries-long effort to reconquer territory from Muslim Moors who had conquered much of the Iberian Peninsula in the early 700s. With the reconquista complete by 1492, Spain could redirect funds and efforts toward funding Christopher Columbus later that very same year. So once Christopher Columbus discovers the Americas for Spain, why does Spain keep sending more explorers there? Why do other nations start to do the same? The reason is God, gold, and glory, the 3 Gs. So glory for your nation. With more of this territory you're taking over, there's greater political influence you're gaining. Territorial possessions bring more wealth, so gold. And then finally, there's God. These growing nation states often had these state-sponsored religions, like Spain had Catholicism, and they felt like it was their duty to spread their religion, their belief system throughout the world. So they would send missionaries to these indigenous peoples in these new world, these American territories, with the goal of converting them. If the 3 Gs isn't sticking with you, another popular mnemonic is the 3 Ms: military, markets, missionaries. Now, the first 2 nation states to really kind of kickstart things and pave the way for the rest are going to be Portugal and Spain. They're both Catholic, and the Pope is going to try to step in to sort of settle the score between the two when determining what areas of the New World belong to which. The Pope draws a line, the line of demarcation, and anything east of it in the Americas belongs to Portugal, anything west to Spain. Now, clearly, Spain got the better deal here, and that is why Portugal is not going to be really a part of the APUSH curriculum, because it's Spain that has all the territories that will later be in question, like Florida. Of the conquerors, conquistadors that Spain had sent to the Americas to take over these territories, probably the most famous is Hernán Cortés, who took over the Mexicas in Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs, as the Spanish would call them, they put up a fight, but disease wore them down, and ultimately they were defeated. Cortés made off like a bandit with gold, bringing lots of gold back to Spain, back to Europe. So it created more of a motivation to do more of the same. The New World had a great climate and fertile soil for cash crops as well. Things like sugar and eventually tobacco down the road. But Areas like the Caribbean islands were fantastic for sugar plantations. And one of the problems, though, is that it's very labor intensive. So where do you get this labor from? This is going to lead to slavery of the indigenous peoples. Now, the Spanish crown created a system to entice more conquerors to come to the New World, and this system was called the encomienda system. It said these grants of land would be given to you if you took over these territories, and you'd also get to basically have the people that lived on these territories too. It's supposed to be more of like a stewardship or custodial kind of relationship where you were taking care of them to some degree. Trying to convert them to Catholicism, to save them, trying to give them something to do so they don't have idle hands, forced labor in mines and on plantations. So the encomienda system kind of was supposed to have positive intentions, but ultimately was abusive and exploitative of the native indigenous peoples. Over 90% of the indigenous peoples of the Americas died off due to disease, and of course, being overworked added to that number as well. This then led to the importation of African slaves to kind of take the place of these natives instead. The Spanish crown still wanted to make money off this interaction, though, so the asiento system on all imported slaves was then put into effect. Now, the French wanted a piece of all this New World wealth as well, so they took to exploring too. But they headed way up north, beyond any of the Spanish claims, to what is now Canada. And they made their way through the St. Lawrence River, down through the Great Lakes area, dominating that, then down through the Mississippi River and the Ohio River Valley, all the way down to Louisiana. The French territory in the Ohio River Valley is going to come up later in our class in Unit 3, because the French and Indian War in 1754 will be fought over claims to that territory. Now, the French are drastically different than the Spanish in their intention. They're not taking over native cities. Instead, they have a very mutually beneficial relationship. They are setting up trading ports throughout these Mississippi and Ohio River Valley areas. They're trading in fur with the Native Americans. So natives are providing beaver pelts, and the French in return are providing manufactured goods. Iron pottery, cookware. Now, England was a little slower to gain a presence in the Americas, and for good reason. They had a lot of internal conflict back home, largely due to the Protestant Reformation in 1517 that's going to go into their country as well and cause a lot of political and religious strife. So by the time they're able to kind of divert their efforts back to exploration, it's much later. It's going to take until about 1588 when England go toe-to-toe with the Spanish Armada and defeat them, to where now England is going to have a little bit of a leg up and feel like they can get out there now in the high seas and make it over to the Americas and kind of make up for some lost time. It does not go well at first, though. In 1585, they create their first colony in the New World, but it's not going to last. It's the colony of Roanoke on Roanoke Island off the coast of North Carolina. England's next attempt is going to famously go very well. Actually, not at first, but the outcome is going to be England's first permanent settlement in the New World. It happens at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. It is a joint stock company called the Virginia Company of London that does it. The survival and thriving of the Jamestown settlement is going to lead to Britain having 13 colonies in the Americas, and will eventually even lead to the establishment of the United States of America. That brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for your time. The next video is on the interactions between Native Americans and the different nation states I had talked about. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.